Mrs. Thatcher, you just answered the BBC.
Margaret Thatcher being such a forceful and, in her own way, revolutionary Prime Minister, there were lots of things to strike attitudes about.
Where there is discord, may we bring harmony.
There was a lot to attack, and there were a lot of high-profile figures who were easily ridiculed.
Where there is error, may we bring truth.
Thatcher was someone you could hate, and there's a lot of vitriolic comedy to be done around her.
Where there is doubt, may we bring faith.
She was a true believer. I felt what she believed was divisive and at times despicable, but nonetheless she really believed it, and it was a decade when the whole nature of our society changed.
And where there is despair, may we bring hope.
You've got to laugh, haven't you?
Ask anyone to name the most dominant figure of the 1980s and you'll always get the same reply. Dave Lee Travis, with his catchphrase, "This hairy cornflake is not for turning." But second to DLT, unquestionably, was Mrs. T, Margaret Thatcher, the Iron Lady, whose revolutionary right-wing politics polarised the country. All that stood in her way, the miners, General Galtieri, rational thought, were ruthlessly destroyed. For instance, thanks to Mrs. Thatch, this building behind me, once the home of Red Ken Livingstone's GLC, has been converted into an aquarium. If only it had been in his day, he could have brought his newt with him to work each morning. Maggie famously said that there was no alternative, but there was. Alternative comedy. Nearly every stand-up worth their salt took on Thatcher and her American sidekick Ronald Reagan to produce a decade of high political satire. And did she care? Did she?
Why does Mrs. Thatcher always wear barbed wire underwear? She doesn't. It's a joke.
The Prime Minister, she's very unpopular now, which is a shame in some ways, because she comes up with some great remarks. And I think one of the great remarks I remember before is, ambulance drivers should be treated like any other professional driver. I'll tell you what, next time she needs pulling out from under a hotel, call her a taxi.
People disappear around Margaret, never to be seen again.
Cab for Maggie, cab for Maggie.
Blimey, never mind Norman Bates. You wouldn't want to get in a shower with her, would you?
Should we go, yeah, get me out of here? Yeah, I'll be waiting in the car, all right.
When you've got such a complete monster, it's fantastically easy to be a group against her.
If there was a Thatcher there, then we would fight that. If there wasn't a Thatcher there, we'd fight something else, or we'd fight each other.
One of the weird things about the left is their obsession with slogans, writing slogans on walls, you know, slogans like jobs, not bombs, as if Mrs. Thatcher's going to be walking up Wigan High Street. Oh, jobs, not bombs. Oh, okay.
Although I was active politically when I was up until my mid-20s, I never really, it always seemed ridiculous and stupid to me, really, and I just always took the piss out of it in kind of conversation and stuff like that, and so it wasn't a difficult leap for me to start doing it professionally when I did, you know.
Oh yes, political satire, yes! This is what we've come from Islington for, yes!
All the decent comics, the left-wing ones from the Comedy Store, formed a group called Alternative Cabaret. Tony Allen was really the leading light. He was the one who did all the work and got it all together.
There's some minority groups that I loathe, like the Metropolitan Police Force.
It was me, Tony, Andy Delator, Jim Barclay, Pauline Melville.
Don't ask me why we need a bomb to destroy schools, hospitals and factories. We should just take our government out and drop it on people.
They were all lefties, where I was an anarchist. I mean, I was part of a political movement that were doing it.
You can always tell the drug squad on Portobello Road on a Saturday afternoon. They're the only people in plain clothes, you know.
I met up with Alexei, and he liked the idea I was working class, which that was his politics.
I'm very much involved in politics, quite left-wing. I'm something of an anarchist. There, told you so.
Comedians, even if they're left-wing, you know, are not team players. They're such screaming individualists. I can remember one night me doing particularly badly and Tony coming to me and going, "Man, that was the worst gig I've ever seen you do." And it was like he was so pleased. He was so pleased, you know.
Hi, man. Where can a cat score some reefers?
I'm totally utopian, I'm totally unreconstructed. We were squatting, it was a lifestyle thing and still is for me.
I want to move on to a lighter topic, Northern Ireland.
I remember the first night Andy Deayton came down and he did this routine about Northern Ireland, which was... And the audience were going mad. Yelling and shouting at him, get off and that. And I just sort of left him on, really. Because, you know, well, it's more interesting.
Can you imagine, you see, if they'd only admit that there has been this war going on in Northern Ireland for the last 10 years, look at the film they could have made. Right?
I think it just caught people's eye, because I don't think any stand-up comic before had actually tried to construct a whole kind of 5-8 minute comic routine about something so apparently serious.
Scene 1. A battleship cruises down the Falls Road.
I was invited to Northern Ireland to do a stand-up routine at 2 or 3 of the Republican clubs in Belfast, because somebody from Northern Ireland had seen me at the Comedy Store.
Over at Long Kesh, looking for a 15-foot fence to jump over, Steve McQueen on his motorbike.
And found it extraordinary that an English comic, a British comic, could be doing comedy about Northern Ireland, which was more or less pro-Republican or anti-British interventionist.
Paddy's being damned quiet tonight, number 1. But number 1 doesn't hear. He's dead. He's been dead for a week, but he doesn't fall over. He's British.
One night at the Comedy Store, I made a particularly tasteless remark about Airy Neve, who'd been recently assassinated by the INLA. And it wasn't particularly funny, but it was on the moment.
Andy said the most terrible, tasteless, shocking to me jokes. Oh, Airy Neve. He could escape from Colditz, but he couldn't get out of the House of Commons car park. You go.
And the audience kind of laughed and sort of gasped.
And that's when I thought, oh, this is what it's about. This is obviously where this is taboo territory we're talking about here now, and it really does upset some people, and other people take it very seriously, defending it.
It almost got into kind of into a fist fight and things. So I brought my act rapidly to a close and got off the stage double quick.
The 80s was an extraordinary decade. People look back, they think it's about BMWs and slick back yappy hair. The decade was one of continual conflict. The first gigs I ever did, Brixton was in flames, as was St Paul's, as was Toxteth. You know, I was 21, 22, playing in London with riots going on outside. It's going to affect your act.
I was looking for a place to live, and obviously I wanted somewhere with a nice class of riot, you know what I mean? Like, ended up with a burnt-out Cortina on the Edgware Road. I've been there a week, I found 6 coppers hiding in the boot.
Have we forgotten the lessons of Brixton and Toxteth?
Luton.
Luton?
Yeah, Luton, Brighton, pillaging.
I thought, given time, there could be blind policemen. Dark visors, guide Alsatians and long white truncheons to feel their way. Because when you're blind, everything's black, isn't it? So they enjoy themselves.
We weren't just reacting to the government, we were reflecting and commenting on things that were going on. There were riots, there were more riots, and there were more riots, and there was war.
This gear that I am wearing is nothing to do with the act. All I'm doing is modelling the new invasion gear that's been issued to the Royal Marines.
From one audience to the other, it became clear to me that British society was completely polarised by the Falklands War, probably more than it's ever been since. And that was a very scary thing.
Red boots to soak up the bloodstains.
There was no doubt that kind of the sort of London scene generally, I think, was pretty well opposed. This curious spectacle, somebody called it, 2 bald men fighting over a comb.
Margaret, you've got your 3 questions, right, to ask. So go on, ask them.
I'd like to ask number 1. On your date, if you were a fleet in the South Atlantic, there was a whopping great destroyer travelling in the opposite direction. As I said in the house, what would you do?
Well,
I'd put the wagons in a circle, call for makeup, and have them shoot my best side.
I used to say stuff like, I say, what cost £125 million and lies at the bottom of the South Atlantic? But there was, outside London, a tremendous feeling for our boys out there, you know, risking their lives, the whole thing, and that it was a just cause, that it wasn't a curious adventure dreamed up by somebody to keep themselves in power, that it was in fact a necessary war that had to be fought.
Margaret Thatcher has discovered that all successful invaders had things growing out their heads. Right? The Vikings had the wings, right? The Saxons had the horns. So Margaret Thatcher said to the Marines, don't mess about, lads, get your bollocks on top of your heads.
So Reagan, huh? Looks like he's up Feces Creek without a paddle. Teflon president finally meets his metal spatula.
It's pretty much Reagan bashing, which was popular in Britain at the time as well.
And now he's got cancer on his nose. First his colon, then his nose. You figure it out.
Sometimes I have a problem. I go over there and I'll take out my country and the audience will laugh a little too hard.
He took a bullet. Nothing. It wasn't silver. He didn't even know he was shot. That's what scared me. Call me wacky, but I'd like a president with a central nervous system.
They're laughing, and I go, wait a minute. It's, you know, it's not a bad country. America's, it's generous. It's a big country. It's a little naive. It's a little dim, but it's still. I mean, you guys are laughing too hard at this.
On his 76th birthday, he actually said, "Well, it's only 24 in dog years." Yeah, President of the United States compared himself to a 24-year-old dog.
Reagan was an absentee landlord for 8 years.
Maybe so, Ron, but every 24-year-old dog I've ever seen has been blind and drooling and lame. The term put to sleep have any meaning here. I'm not afraid he's going to push the button. I'm worried he's going to nod out and fall on it.
Want to come home to a real coal fire? Why not buy a mine? Available now from all good government surplus stores. Cheap, big and reliable, and set in the once beautiful countryside of misty Scotland, dreamy Kent, and how green was my valley, South Wales.
It was extremely confrontational and aggressive government and a chronic recession, and certainly during the miners' strike, all of this was polarised in the extreme.
It was one of those things where sort of politics invaded almost everybody's life. So, you know, almost everybody can remember certain things, you know, even if it was people coming round their house, knocking on the door, asking for food for the miners and things like that. Everywhere you went, there were collections at the tube and, you know, at the railway stations and the shopping centres, all those sorts of things were going on. And it did have a big effect on the comedy scene.
It's not a long way to a police state. It's not a long way to go. We got away with it at all green. So we should bleed him well know.
Anyone who was a comedian at the time, we would do, you know, you'd just do benefit after benefit for the miners' strike, and therefore the whole thing became a bit politicised.
Goodbye, civil liberties. You can't march over there. It's not a long, long way to a police state. In fact, we're already there.
There was a feeling of helplessness, and that ridicule was about the only option.
So there you have it. Don't just buy British, buy Britain. Throw millions out of work. Chuck them in the army and invade Germany. Only this time, we lose. Yeah? Yeah. Have your own economic miracle. Paint your trousers green and stick your head in a teapot, because we're the government and we don't care.
I'm here to entertain you with songs about depression.
Mrs. Thatcher, she's doing a good job, right? She's doing a difficult job, she's doing it well. What's she doing? She's doing big jobs, right? Exactly.
I'm here to entertain you.
Unemployed, in the void, they avoid. I'm annoyed with Sigmund Freud, Chrissy Lloyd and Roy Dotrice, whoever the hell they are, I don't know.
I'm here to entertain you.
And I went into a burger place on the way down here, but I had to obviously leave the cruise missile outside, because if I'd have taken it in, it would have been competing with the hamburgers as to which was the biggest health risk. And when I came out, it was gone. There was just 18 empty factories there, a couple of empty hospitals, and a note saying, "It's a fair swap, yours Maggie."
The world is run by madmen. They want to hurt and maim you. And while we're on the subject, I'm here to entertain you.
Has anyone here got a job? You remember jobs? We used to be big in the 60s.
I could be the driver in articulated lorry. I could be a...
When I left school, I went to the careers officer, and it wasn't because I wanted a job, you know, because they'd eradicated unemployment round our way. Mind you, they'd raised the school leaving age to 69.
I grew up in the 30s with an unemployed father. He didn't riot. He got on his bike and looked for work, and he kept looking till he found it.
There's 17,000 of us signing on in Hackney, and we all signed Monday morning's Box C, 10:30. In those days, I was obviously declaring all my income and every penny of it to the Inland Revenue. Obviously, I was never performing and signing on actually at the same time. Clearly, obviously not. But in different periods of time, I had remembered signing on the dub. I thought everyone's in a really bad mood. Keep it light, keep it light. I'll crack a little joke, right? Leaned forward to the counter clerk, gave him my UB40 and said, "I have to get back to Bahrain tonight."
Well, I ain't been a plasterer, though, right? I'll go down the dole, you know. Not to sign on, nah, just to wave loads of money at them. Their eyes, they glow up when they see all my money, they glow up.
Loads of Money was a tremendous creation. I mean, it became, as many great bits of work do, it became a bit of a colossus, a bit of a monster in a way for Harry.
Loads of money!
It was so big, and the satire was nearly getting lost in that the people it was satirising were so proud to be satirised that they were giving it loads of money at Harry in the street, etc.
I'm a plasterer, see? Bush, bush, shum, shum, dollop, dollop, lovely job, loads of money! Oh, mate, how much you earn a year? Is that all? I'm on that in a bleeding day, mate! Loads of money!
The most extraordinary thing was that Saturday Live, Friday Night Live were shows that really didn't get a great deal of coverage in the press, and yet somehow, very quickly, loads of money, both in terms of the catchphrase being used all over the place, loads of funny, loads of sunny, loads of bunny, whatever, that started to appear, and people started to do impersonations of Harry doing it.
I'll go down the betting shop, I'll put the whole lot on horse. Horse comes in last, I put bleeding more on. Horse comes in last again, I put bleeding more on. Horse is dead, I put bleeding more on.
What Harry was very, very good at, particularly then, was just coming out and doing this explosive burst for about 3 minutes and going off, so you were completely rocked back in your seat.
I'll go down the butcher, I say, oi mate, I want £1,000 on that piece of meat to win the derby. No, second thoughts, put some bleeding more on. That's what the old butcher calls me, bleeding more on.
One of the lines that I think best summed him up, which was quite a sort of shock line, was,
all you need to know about politics is that Mrs. Thatcher,
she's done a wonderful job for the country,
but you wouldn't want to shag it.
I mean, right down to the just the sort of the attitude, just her as a politician, but she's a woman, and that's my attitude. There was, yeah, it was a very, it was a great and horrible character.
Sir, 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 sir. How come you don't earn much money being a teacher? Wanker!
It was shocking how that touched a nerve, and everybody knew the joke instantly. Within 2 minutes of the first loads of money, the whole country knew the joke, whether they thought it was satire or a celebration of a lifestyle. Everybody got it.
Margaret Thatcher said that a lot of people are going to be better off under the poll tax, and in my case it is actually true, because I always used to pay the rates. I'm not paying the bloody poll tax.
The government no longer needs to flush sewage directly into the North Sea because the poll tax enables them to crap directly on all of our heads.
We got the poll tax in Scotland 1 year earlier than England, and I thought that was a terrible disgrace. And so when I got the poll tax form, you know that section of the form where you had to fill in, where you had to define your relationship to the other persons in the household. So I was so angry I put going through a bad patch.
I know, I'll kill Margaret Thatcher. Now I know you're sitting there and you're thinking, back legs.
Assassination is merely a nihilistic act which strikes at one representative of bourgeois state. There's nothing to advance dictatorship and proletariat. Well, it's worth trying it, eh? Give it a whirl.
Well, Margaret Thatcher she was something of a gift to comedians.
So first of all, I tried to kill her quite subtly, and what I did was, I got a bottle of bleach and I sent it to her through the post, but I crossed off the warning about not drinking it. She was too clever for me. Quick as a flash, she wrote the warning back on.
She was so strident, so out there and right-wing, so apparently an enemy to everything we stood for.
One of the things, of course, that is really frightening is they're saying that now it looks like Margaret Thatcher might resign, but then they're saying that there's going to be two candidates against her, one from the left and one from the right. I thought, from the right? What are they going to do, dig Hess up?
I remember the day when she finally, her demise. I was performing here at the Hackney Empire and I came on to the sound of the funeral march and bewailed the death of all the jokes, all the millions of jokes that there were. And then I ripped my shirt off to reveal a "Thank fuck she's gone" t-shirt and started a big party. It was fantastic.
Francis Bacon said, knowledge is power. Well, if knowledge is power, George Bush is a 2-watt light bulb. I mean, a man so stupid he has to sit face down in an armchair because he hasn't mastered reverse yet.
The Allies are employing carpet bombing. So that's Allied carpet bombing. Hundreds of Iraqi missile sites must go.
I think my favorite time for doing political comedy was during the war, during the Persian Gulf War, showdown in the Gulf, boom, 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 boom.
We sold arms to Iran, gave military intelligence to both Iran and Iraq. Now, how did that work? Here, put this gun in your pocket. He's got a gun in his pocket. He knows about the gun, man.
Yeah, it was a perfect war, and it was very far away, and it was people who weren't our color, and it was about money, and it was the perfect American war.
Nice to be back in England. Haven't been there since before the war, and this is pretty much the last place left for Americans to come because everybody else hates our guts, don't they? It's like England and Kuwait, and who the hell wants to go to Kuwait right now? There's nothing to see. You want to help us put out the fires? No, I'm on vacation. I'll take a light, though.
My best stuff has got to be real emotional for me. And I do have a very short, black, raging Irish temper.
We're pretty happy about the war in America, because we kicked some ass. We weren't sure at the beginning. We were kind of like, well, I don't know if we should go to war. Then we started kicking ass. It's like, hey, this feels pretty good. Let's dig up John Wayne. Come on. I say we make a couple of stops on our way home from the Gulf. First stop, Vietnam. Surprise the hell out of those people, huh?
When I first broke, and people started to say stuff like, you're politically incorrect, and isn't it great to say, fuck you to the PC people in 1990, 91, 92 when I was free. I didn't know what the hell they were talking about.
I think we should take Iraq and Iran and combine them into one country and call it irate, okay? All the pissed off people live in one place, we know where they are.
He armed Iraq. I wondered about that too, During the Persian Gulf War, those intelligence reports would come out.
Iraq, incredible weapons. Incredible weapons.
How do you know that?
Well...
We looked at the receipt.
But as soon as that check clears, we're going in.
I think Bill Hicks was the huge sort of hero of comedy because he had principles. He was incredibly funny, but he wasn't afraid not to be funny.
I'm so sick of arming the world and then sending troops over to destroy the fucking arms. You know what I mean? We keep arming these little countries, then we go and blow the shit out of them. We're like the bullies of the world, We're like Jack Palance in the movie Shane, throwing the pistol at the sheep herder's feet. Pick it up.
Bill was a master at sort of carving out a whole 2-hour show where you laughed and you laughed, but he said so much of his own political sort of ideology, and it's so interesting.
Bush, trying to buy votes towards the end of the election, he goes around, selling weapons to everyone, getting that military-industrial complex vote happening for him. Sold 160 fighter jets to Korea, then 240 tanks to Kuwait, and then goes around making speeches why he should be commander-in-chief because we still live in a dangerous world. Thanks to you, you fucker!
So he wasn't just a comedian, he was sort of he was a groundbreaker.
People ask me where I stood politically, you know. It's not that I disagree with Bush's economic policy or his foreign policy. It's that I believed he was a child of Satan here to destroy the planet Earth. Yeah, I'm a little to the left there, I was.
Of course some comics will influence people if they're any good, and if their routines are about ideas as opposed to kind of surreal riffs, which is another style and wonderful sort of comedy I like to watch but can't do. But if there's ideas and thoughts in the routines, then they may provoke thought. Who knows? Somebody's mind might be changed.
It's no good me having a go at Mrs. Thatcher, because she keeps her word. That's one thing I appreciate. She never breaks a word. Last general election, she promised she wouldn't touch the National Health Service. She kept her word. When she had a hand operation done, she did it at a private hospital. I respect that.
But if the comedian sets out to change that person's mind or to influence them, then they're dead. They're going to be boring and they're going to be patronising. They're going to be just like any other bore in the pub.
You remember her hand? Oh, she had a sore hand. The tendons on the hand were constricting, pulling in the fingers to form a claw. And the doctors tried to reverse this. They tried to undo it. You cannot undo what God has done. First the claw, then the horns, then the fork tail.
It did nothing at all. I mean, you know, having comedy clubs all over the place criticising the government made absolutely no impact upon political events.
Does anybody here vote Conservative at all? Oh. No, we don't normally get you on the alternative circuit, I must admit.
If you're an entertainer and you have some political views, then I suppose you want to try and express them in some way. But of course, in the end, I don't think that the electorate are that bothered what comedians think.
True, alternative comedy couldn't get rid of Mrs. Thatcher, but it did signal the end of shows reliant on jokes about mother-in-laws, ugly wives, and women in low-cut blouses being ogled by dirty old men. Unless, of course, they were written by Dennis Potter. At last, we were no longer laughing at women, but with them. At the start of the 80s, practically the only female comedian on TV was Dame Edna Everage, and she only got a chance because of her looks. By the end of the decade, as we shall see next week, women comedians were on top. Success was in their sights, and they were literally gagging for it.
Jennifer, that is facial rape. I cannot believe this sort of pornography is going on in my own home. Work hard.
So exactly where is it we're going, Candy?
We are going to a very private club where a lot of high-class gentlemen will ask you to dance. So remember what I taught you. Come here, babe. We go step, step, shake, shake, boogie round, shake.